And Dr. Solomon, my understanding that in 2014, only about 2.77% of all seafood imports were inspected. Do you think that percentage is adequate? And if not, what does the FDA plan to do differently?
So the seafood safety system that I described during my testimony is multifaceted. So there's many components of it. First is putting the hazard analysis critical control point regulations into place, which puts the burden on the processor to produce safe product. Then we have oversight by doing foreign inspections of them. Then we also conduct inspections of HACCP regulations by the importers. So the testing that takes place at the border is a verification activity or a surveillance activity to try and find if there's any flaws in the system and how it's working and to identify them, and as verification activities. So we test at different rates as sampling. So taking generic rates for seafood, we test higher rates for certain products, certain commodities, higher risk areas, and much higher rates than that, because we want to have additional verification for those particular aspects which pose the greatest safety concerns.
I understand all of that. I didn't mean to suggest by my question that you just do one thing, you just stop 2.77% at the border, test it. So as part of that overall effort, do you think the net inspection rate of 2.77% is adequate?
Examination at the border as a verification activity at the various rates we do, we think is a viable control measure in light of all the other measures that we have in place.
So you have no plans to increase it?
With the resources we currently have, we would not just increase sampling testing. If the agency had additional resources, we would focus on all the aspects of the framework regulatory structure that I described.
Why would you increase it if you had more resources?
Greater oversight and greater confidence in how the system's working. We would do more foreign inspections, we would do more importer examinations, but once again, not on a universal basis, on a risk basis on the product.
So the level you do now is not optimal?
We think we actually have very few foodborne illnesses associated with seafood products, but with more resources, the agency could do more.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand. You're suggesting it's adequate, but in the next sentence you said you'd certainly do more with more money.
So it's a risk basis in terms of looking at the products that are coming in. With additional resources, we could look at lower levels of risk. We're looking at the highest levels of risk now.
Doctor, certainly in the past the following has happened. A batch of actually tested and rejected seafood imports has been simply shopped to another port of entry. What in your overall system today categorically prevents that?
So we have a notification system, electronic notification system. When we refuse an entry, that electronic notification system not only notifies Customs and Border Protection, but all the other FDA district offices and ports.
And so how is that batch tagged indelibly so that that notification is meaningful, so that those other ports can identify the same batch we're talking about?
Right. So as you may be aware, we've been working for many years to try and get a marking rule that would provide that marking of the product. That is not in place yet, but right now we do notifications based off the data that we have of who the importer is, what the commodity line is, and make sure that everyone is aware about that shipment was refused.
So if they, so there isn't a set marking rule, so if they change the packaging or any of the markings, they could very possibly get away with what I'm describing?
The system is not foolproof. I agree with you, but we do notifications.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would suggest that's a bigger hole than simply saying it's not absolutely foolproof, but we'll pursue that.